Good afternoon. And for the educational thinkers assignment, I chose Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune was born July 10th, 1875, in Maysville, South Carolina, as the 17th child of former slaves. She was born 10 years after the Civil War had ended, and she was born during the breath of time known as Reconstruction, a time in which the South and the North were getting back on their feet, if you will, after the Civil War. With her being born to former slaves, her parents were illiterate, and she herself was determined to change the paradigm and the narratives of African Americans and African American women in general by pursuing an education. Her experiences with educational disparities began with her as a child because she made it her mission to read a book at least once a week if she could. And one day she decided to pick up a book, and a young white child told her to put the book down, believing that as an African American and as an African American girl at that she could not possibly know how to read, given the time in which she was born and the era in which she was born in. And so she made it from that time to really go forth and become a catalyst for change within the educational within the career of education. And so she went to Barlow College, and then she went on to study at that time was Charles Moody School for Missions, which would then become Moody Bible Institute. But because the church would not sponsor her, she went into education and selling insurance. So in 1904, Dr. Bethune ended up founding the Daytona School for Negro Girls, in which she, along with 5 other girls and her little son, Albert Jr., she began to teach these young ladies. And so her educational influences were really inspired by her religion. Bethune, as with other African Americans at that time, had a very profound faith in God, as they saw God was the only one that really saw them through the perils and dangers of chattel slavery and even Jim Crow South and Reconstruction. And so her faith in God really propelled her to not only go ahead and go into doing education, but really to get also politically and socially involved with other major organizations to which she would have had a hand in finding, such as the United Negro College Fund or UNCF, as well as making sure that the Red Cross was integrated, along with founding the institution that she bears her name, the Bethune-Cookman College, Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida, which is a premier historically black college and university, or HBCU, both in the state of Florida and in the United States in general. Bethune also believed in the philosophy of socially responsible individualism, according to the University of Chicago, which states that individuals must act responsibly and then educate themselves with the intent of using what they learn to help society or paying it forward. And so she felt that whatever one learned, it was not just their duty to keep it to themselves, but to pass it on and be a blessing to others. As mentioned before, her greatest influence was her faith. And so she would learn the Bible, and once she had learned the Bible, she would then disseminate that knowledge to her family and friends, many of whom were illiterate, and even made it incorporated her faith into the schools that she taught. And then lastly, she wanted to change the narrative of women in general. So a couple of the things I want to say is one personal critique of Bethune's philosophy is that she really made sure that women were kept and they were not put into these parameters or of these stereotypes. But another critique I would say is that I think that Bethune should have been a little more forward-thinking to also ensure that her male counterparts were also helped, because racial disparities did not just affect African American women, but they affected the entire race. So, in sum, that was the philosophy and the mind frame of the late Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune.